Money and banking. Now, here we're looking at the creation of money. So this first section, we're going to deal with money and banking. We're going to go to the traits of money. In other words, how do we end up with money? How do we get this, this wonderful crazy stuff they all talk about? It was, oh, money, money, money. And keep in mind, I value money, but remember, money is just a representation of wealth, of income. It's not wealth in of itself, although how it gets in leads people to think of why money would be wealth or income, which we're going to get to. So how do we get to this? Now these are just pictures of old coins, old coins. And so how do we get to them? What got us there? So money, we actually will get to banking. No pun intended. Now why do we end up with money? Well, just to know why do we get money? And none of the pictures are there just to show basically I I love images. I'm not gonna lie, and so I picked images to go in there because when you just have the graphs, it's boring. Or just typing is really boring too. But the question is, how do we end up with money? How do we get to this point to where we are using money? And so before you ask where we get to money, you have to say, what was before money? Oh, I mean, taking a time's going to get acid reflux. So the question comes, what was there before money? All right. What do we have? Don't mind me, I was using the white because dark background. Now, before money, there was something called barter. And barter is exchange of goods for goods. In fact, you have idiots today in academia, thank you, Lord, not economists, who say, oh, if we got rid of money, in fact, I think I pick on with Star Trek because they're like, the next generation, they go, we are beyond money. Everyone says their needs met. Did you get rid of scarcity? Does goods fall free from the sky or something like that? I'm not being cruel. How do you get people to be? Everybody wants to be a starship commander or chief engineer or something like that. Who wants to be the guy who's basically the guy in the red shirt is going to get killed? Think about it. I mean, I'm not being cruel. I'm pointing out. So now barter is exchange of goods for goods. So a lot of people will say, oh, we should go back to a barter system of people exchanging goods for goods because then we'll get rid of all the acquisitive and people grubbing after money. They'll say stuff like that. And it's like, people say that a lot of times, oh, they're grubbing after money. In other words, because money just represents wealth. In other words, what they want is they want all these, you see all these goods here, and they want all these goods, but then they want to act pious and holy. Like they don't want those goods because I have forsworn money. Give me all those goods. So they really want money. It was, yeah, they have that. Remember, might as well say they have greed and avarice even more than other people because they cloak it in a fake piety. So barter is exchange of goods for goods. Now, exchange of goods for goods seems very easy. I trade you an axe, you give me grain. There we go. It's a good for a good. But is it really that easy? I've been picking on the intellectuals and the idealists because they think, money is the cause of all trouble and stuff like that. And no, I'm not attacking the Lord. The Lord was pointing out the love of material wealth, which using money as an example, because money is a measurement, a store of material wealth, is the root of evil because it leads people away from the Lord. In other words, we're so after getting all these little goody things, we take our eyes off the Lord. Doesn't mean the Lord wants us poor. Doesn't mean he wants us rich. He wants to be seeking the Lord. He will take care of us and such. Okay. But now, a lot of people think of, oh, goods for goods. It's so wonderful. If we could go back, that'd be great. But it was these evil capitalists who got us working on money. Well, I mean, if barter's working so good, why do we ever leave barter? And it's how can you ever trick anybody to do something contrary to their own interests? One person you can trick. Over 50% of the population you cannot trick. And so go back to an individual in terms of one of the reasons they people think that is because they want individuals want to be better off, firms want to be materially better off, so the individual who owns the firm will be better off. I'm just saying, going back to the positive motivator, loyalty to the positive motivator. Come on, loyalty does not mean bad, it just means there. Now, like we say, if we go to barter, we get rid of the greed. is eliminated, which is not true. In fact, a lot of people who are doing things for, non-market basis, because I can pick on like almost every movie Disney's made in the last year, and well, we're beyond greed. That's right, which means they're not thinking of who? The customer. The profit max motive makes you think the customer will make the customer better off. So that is a situation that you have to keep an eye on. Okay, every time you trade, there's new negotiations. So, hey, the first time I traded this axe, it may have been one axe went for 10 bushels of grain. I have no idea. But the next time I need more grain and I got another axe, it may not be 1 to 10. I've got to renegotiate. In other words, I have to make my axes, harvest my grain, without knowing what the price is going to be, without knowing how much people are going to lose or gain from the arrangement. And that is tough. That is a difficult situation because keep in mind, whether we like it or not, like I said a few times, cost still exists. I point this out because we're going to run into it again in a second. And it's going to be one of those days when my mouse pad is like, I don't want to. Costs still exist. So my costs still exist. We like to think they don't, and they do. So barter, though, is a string of problems, resulting in humanity spending centuries, even millennia, frozen, stuck at a poor level of income, a poor standard of living. We were frozen. We spend millennia going no place because the cost of bartering. Because remember, economics studying. I'm going to use this term which again I don't like a lot of times, but it's the study of scarcity, the study of limitations, how we allocate resources, the straight cost of bartering creating these costs, placed and trapped humanity in a grabbing poverty, grinding, devastating poverty for hundreds, millennia, thousands of years. It is preventing us from using markets because you got rid of money and stuff like that, so you can't really use markets that well. Preventing people losing their physical capacity, and so this would happen. And so we could make the mildest adjustments that result in improving our standard of living because these costs we're going to see in a second. Cost, a coincidence of wants. Barter requires people to have, I have something you need, and you have something I need. Now, everybody may need grain. That's easy. What about an axe? The mid-sized farmer needs an axe, so if he doesn't need an axe, but I need grain because I need bread. So in order for people to trade, I must have something you need, and you must have something I need. And this is very difficult because a lot of times we very rarely have the good the other person needs. Wants or needs, I should say. So this is why in pre-money economies, people often lived in a state of autarky on the individual level. Not autarky like, oh, the United States does not trade with Canada or something like that. Not that. Imagine each individual having to make their own goods. Each individual having to make their own goods, having to, do, something they need because I don't have everything they need. So what'll happen is you're doing everything you need with the exception of a few goods. You can't do it all, which means everybody's living at a simple level of income. Everybody's being a farmer of a type so I can generate my food. I'm making all my food myself. I may sell something, I shouldn't say sell, trade for something to get those things I can't do, but I don't even know if they want what I'm doing. So, I have to face. So everybody lives in a state of autarky, of untrade, non-trade. And it'll slowly squeezes and locks people up because you're doing everything yourself. So it's like a lot of people would be making their own boots. You learn how to hunt the animal, skin the animal, do the hide and stuff like that. And eventually figure out how to make a type of shoe I use. Good as a shoemaker. Nope. But it takes so much time, energy, and effort to figure out how to deal with them. And so there's a brutality to it. Multiple trades. In fact, this is representation of an old marketplace. All these marketplaces were kind of like malls of their time. Everybody, all the merchants would come to the same place. They traded. Now, governments would do this for taxation purposes. Firms, the people selling goods, I should say, they would do this for efficiency purpose. I'm coming in from my farm, and I have loaves of bread or sacks of grain. I'm going to be sitting there in my stall with my grain, and I'm going to be trading with people. Other people will be coming in with sides of beef. Other people coming in with metal jewelry. Other people will be coming in with certain tools. They're coming in with things to trade off to other people. And the marketplace would be clustered around each other, so it would be easy for people to trade because it would be one-stop shopping. You show up and you go and check out all the markets. It's nice, it's swift, it's easy. So in order to control costs, market districts develop these areas. But you're going to have to engage in multiple trade. I made axes. The grain guy doesn't want axes. I can go and trade for, coconuts. Well, he still doesn't want coconuts because coconuts trade for another good. And so those multiple trades were studied in the EU before the currency, before the establishment of the euro. Found that a trip through all the European currencies at that time would result in about a 40 to 50% drop in value of the money you started with, just because of the cost of trying to do the exchanges and such. So if you had one currency, there would be that. That's making one market currency, see? So we have to engage in multiple trades. Each time I engage in a trade, all I wanted to do was trade an axe for grain. I'm now doing 6 trades to get my axe converted to something somebody wanted, somebody else wanted to get to grain. I probably didn't get my money's worth. I'm really getting 50% of my money's worth. So again, that's why market districts were developed. There's a subdivision of units. In other words, if I'm dealing with oil or milk or juice or bags of grain, I can subdivide it into smaller units and lose no value. In other words, I could subdivide the smaller units and lose no value, to lose no impact of it. And so someone says once we start cutting up the cow, though, the cow loses money. Once we break the diamond down, so some goods can be divided, others cannot. The cow cannot. I chop up that angry nut. I know all those pieces of cows. I'm like, oh, food, yeah. People don't like all the same cuts. But I'm stuck. See, once I cut that sucker up, the cow starts losing value. It starts losing money because why? It's going to die. And with food, particularly beef, the clock starts ticking fast. And that is a problem. The same thing, you can't break up a 1,000 cat diamond into 1,000, 1 cat diamonds. The 1,001 cats not add up to what? To 1,000 credit. So it's a killer. So these things, they can't be subdivided. Because it can't be subdivided, it makes it very difficult to barter a trade. Because now somebody has to be looking at to make sure if someone will buy the whole cow, because of the value. Okay, there we go. So with that, recovering my bad thing. No, seriously, if we divide this thing, it loses value. That's why you can't do things like. So some things cannot be divided. See, bags of grain can be divided. Salt can be divided. A living animal, once you take the chainsaw of the cow and start chopping up, you're losing value. Gold can be melted. Gold, silver, stuff like that. Same whether you have 1 ounce or 1,000 ounces. Doesn't matter. But these things, they change. No bookkeeping. Basically accounting. Without accounting, we don't know what things are happening. We don't know if we're losing money, making money, how it's going to. Because see, resources, scarcity still holds. Scarcity is still locked in, except we don't know what the scarcity is. And that is the problem. That is the trap. Is, see, not knowing bookkeeping. There's not, see, that's what makes it so funny. A lot of people think, get rid of money, everyone just have everything, it'll be unlimited, it'll be all glorious. It's like, no. Scarcity still exists. Resources still exist. The cost of things still exists, but we don't know it. See, ignorance is not bliss. A lot of people think of this ignorance and, oh, we can have things unlimited because no one's, the bean count is got rid of. It's like, no, ignorance will not protect you. Stupidity will not protect you. Heck, we had, in the middle of a semi-economy going forward, and I apologize. We had, a few years ago, Sun Valley Bank, which I mentioned a few times, Silicon Valley Bank, went bankrupt and got $100 billion bailout. Now, why did they get the bailout? They made sure they had connections to the Fed, and at that time, the Secretary's chair, the Secretary of Treasury, who was a former Fed chair, they were buds of the person running it and stuff like that. Because normally they would receive nothing, they would have gone bankrupt. They just would have been like, a few people who were shareholders would have gotten, people with deposits would have gotten some bailout up to $100,000. That would have been it. This is a bank of millionaires and billionaires. They all would have lost. No, we got to save them. Why? They were stupid. Why? Because they did not think about bookkeeping. Can the person pay back the loan? This is a good loan. That's a good loan. It's people who talk about measly little things like money grabbing people. They worry about that. I'm doing holistic work. Well, that's nice, except for the fact of, guess what? Cost still exists. And if costs exist, they're going to have to be covered. So even in days of body, you have people failing economically because they wouldn't know that the thing they're making is costing too many resources. They're putting in too much to keep it. So they'd start shrinking, collapsing because they're not being efficient. A lot of this goes back to, tell a bad note, a lot of it goes back to intellectuals. Intellectuals often hate accounting. They think we just could ban accounting, get rid of it. All the bad stuff would go away. No. The bad stuff doesn't go. Not seeing the train did not protect that truck. It still died. It doesn't shield you from reality. You want to ignore reality. Now, this is why if you ever read through, Genesis, you wonder in the sense of why are they talking about how good Abraham's doing, and they're listing off this many camels, that many goats, and that many sheep, and all that kind of fun stuff. Because God was him. Why did Laban trick Jacob to stay? Because he wanted what? He wanted the benefit God was giving Jacob. Because everything Jacob ran was very prosperous. And so everybody tries to know, you know which things to do and be functional. We don't. And so, like I said, God was running Abraham and Jacob's accounting system. So you could see their way to be successful because God would advise you. So God did not work. So people still benefit from trade, but they couldn't tell. And we make immense benefits from trade. I do something, I do well, you do something, you do well. But to do that, we have to, we have to get bartering. But we don't know if someone's always available, and so we have a lot of impact. And so without knowing the cost of making it, it's hard to engage in trade. And so people just in a state of massive autarky with limited trade. So markets say barter is inefficient. Markets create the first money. So we get what's called specie money, the first money. This is money that has value in and of itself. In other words, people are not accepting it because it's called money. People accept it because anybody will want to use gold or silver or salt. These things are what's called specie money, money that has value, independent of being money, and that's why people accept it for money because they can always what? Use it to get something else I want. I apologize. So, for example, when you're in prison, that cigarettes become money. Now, aren't I a non-smoker accept cigarettes in payments for goods? That's easy. With cigarettes, there's always a smoker around, so if you have cigarettes, you can always exchange them to him and get other goods you may need. Now it's the same with all these things. Now, when you look at these items, among the first 100 things was salt, copper, silver, and gold. Now, copper is easy. Copper was an industrial metal, always used for making tools and stuff like that. Silver and gold were fine metals. They made luxuries. And always somebody who wants gold or silver for their purposes, they became money. In fact, salt becoming money is actually very simple. I chopped up the cow. What I do? Salt. I use a lot of salt to preserve the cow. That way I don't have rot. So copper, salt, copper, gold, silver became the first currencies, the first monies. Particularly, it went down to usually copper, silver, and gold, because they always have people can always use them. So if you were a trader, not traitor, and you were traveling from Roman Egypt and went to China, because you're going to buy something there and bring back to the Middle East, right? When you arrive in China, you can show them your bags of gold coins. They're not going to care about whose face is on it. It's going to be irrelevant. They can say, "Is it gold? If it's gold, I will accept it." Again, I apologize for my slow moving. Now, so what does money give us? Now, money gives us a series of traits. These are benefits yielded by money unto us. That money gives to us as a society, as a people. That is very useful. Okay, one, remember, money is the measurement of wealth or income. It's not wealth or income itself. It's a representation of wealth. This will be confused a lot less as we get to specie money and stuff like that. Whereas the commodity money, it's easy to say, oh yeah, money is wealth because why? I generate output. The commodity is always useful as money. I got these copper coins. People always buy copper because they use it to make goods. Now money yields the economy and the population several great benefits. And these are immensely useful. First one is unit of exchange, supply and demand. I know I saw the end of the USD. I'm just using that for an simple. Goods are allowed to be exchanged for goods because we have a common unit of measure. I don't have to worry about having someone buy my axes. I can go there, the supply and demand, I can offer my axes on that common market, and people buy and sell and give me money for it. So this allows an efficiency in marketplace. We can find the actual value of things and get the most bang for their buck. Keeping in mind this one. These people are not buying the goods because for the sellers, it costs too much to make and no one's buying it. For the buyers, at the equilibrium price, that yellow price, it's not worth the return. So those goods are not made, which is good because that'd be inefficient. So money tells those with inflation don't make them because why? We'll lose more money than we're going to get from them. Oops, ew, that was so ugly. That side going down demand curve, those who are getting more than they're paying for, they're getting return efficiency. People on the supply curve here, it's a semi-supply curve, but they also are getting more than the cost of making the good. They're making a return. No, they are. And so, unit of exchange, everybody accepts these goods in exchange. It allows this market to function better, to improve it. Unit of account, that one's easy. With money, we can engage in accounting. We can figure out where we're making money, where we're losing money. We can allocate resources very efficiently. Remember, accounting just tells us what the reality is. It doesn't make the reality. In other words, we can ignore reality, we still get hammered. But now we can see. So accounting, the account of money, allows us to see, allows people to make decisions and know which industries, markets, or items are making money, which ones are not, and reallocate resources accordingly so I don't have wastage, inefficiencies. Because remember, the cost of growing crops is the same whether or not I record it. And store value. Store value is great. I can put no store value is up there. All the trades of money up there. Let's put store value up there because store value allows value. The investment market can now come into existence when you have store value. Because what can happen is, hey, what I do? I'm in the Venetian floodplains. I grow rice. That's what I put all my energy in. And since I'm very good at growing rice, I have surplus money left over, surplus resource left over, which I can convert to money, and the money can keep. In other words, the stuff I produce, people act like you just get money, just give stuff free. No. I am working. Store value allows you to work, and then I can do what? I can keep the value of my money available, and it holds value. When money holds value, then I can use it to invest in the savings investment. Because the guy who's doing rice, I'm making surplus money. Now I can just keep his gold bricks, but having investment sector means people can go to where my surplus is saved. I'm a saver. All these nice, happy savers. Their money is now being borrowed by investors who have a rate of return they'd like to get. And so store value allows the creation of a financial sector. Financial sector, private sector investment feeds directly into technology, resources, and capital. That gives a massive return because now that can exist. Remember, investment is a long-term planning item, a long-term, not control, but creation item. Now, money comes in several cases. In fact, that was funny. I saw the other day. I missed this. This is what's called a banker note, a backed banker note. Because in the 18th and 19th century, specie money was backed, or at the same time was called backed money. Now, backed money says you must have the gold to equal that is. So this is certificate note. It says you can come to the U.S. Fed or before the Treasury, and they will convert this money into coins. So this thing says it's worth $1,000 worth of coins. And so backed money comes in back. Now backed money again, it promises to pay to be backed and paid back in gold or silver. That's always funny when someone says, these are plates from 1920, money plates, so go and print their money. It's like, no, because those aren't current plates. people would notice all of a sudden a bunch of silver, gold certificate dollar bills appearing and say, someone's running a scam, doing something illegal, and you'd fail. And this is back money now. So, I know sometimes you can have coins and back money, because back money says you can take this money, go to the bank who issued it, and trade it for gold coins. Or usually it'd be like the U.S. Central Bank, the Treasury Secretary, or the Fed. So that was allowed to flow. And one of the reasons it's allowed to come in is this. In other words, I'm a bank. These people called banker bills. In other words, there used to be a point in time in U.S. history when you had our money, did just go up to 50 or 100? It went to 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, $20. Those would be billions. So I could transfer money across the country. Instead of having a giant locked box full of gold coins, I can have $1 million note in my hand, fold up, stuff in my boot, as long as I'm not killed or anything, which I'm not doing anything to kill. And I physically transfer the money to San Francisco, except if I give them that note they gave me. Because I was easily carrying off all the gold, because no one realized you didn't come out with, you're going out with a few pounds, 100 pounds of gold, everybody knows it. And you're going out with, $1 million. We did have $1 million bill way back when, so it was called bankers. So banks would use these notes to transfer money between banks, stuff like that. And you have $1 and $5 and $10 to transfer among the people. Now, backed money led the creation of fiat money. Fiat money is I say so money. This is money that is only good because the government says this money is backed by nothing. Now, these are European euros. We see there European euros. Now, fiat money, faith money, breaks into two types. Faith, and I say so. Faith money is like European euros and US dollars. Other people believe in it. People don't have to accept your money, take your money, even though there's nothing forcing them to take your money. If you're in Italy or in Syria or in Namibia or in Nepal or in Cambodia and you pull out a wad of dollar bills, they will take them because they have faith these dollars will keep money, will keep value. For example, in Cuba, they have a very large underground economy, and it's all run in dollar bills. That's fiat money. It was the Cubans who hate the United States, love American money. They have faith American money will keep its value. No one buys Cuban. I can't with these type of pesos. No one buys those anymore because why? That's the government work. That won't work. Terrorists, for example, use dollar bills and euros massively. Even though the terrorists want us dead, they always use our money as the currency exchange of choice. Because they're worried about losing money. They're worried about getting cheated out. Now, the last thing of money is I say so money. You must accept this because people holding the guns, the government say you must accept it. Nobody else will accept it. Your money's worthless outside your country because the foreign banks won't take it. Now, those are Brazilian bolivars. Now, you notice those notes, 200 million, 500 million, 1 billion. This isn't like bank notes. This is Venezuela driven its inflation rate so high that currency is destroyed. No one accepts it. So just like in Cuba, no one accepts Cuban currency. Because why? It's I say so money. It's just the force of the government saying you must take this money. And that is a brute. So people are forced to accept taking that money. These bolivars here, like that may be worth 50 cents. And then this one, let's see, 20. So if that's worth 50 cents, that's like worth a $1.25, and then the third one may be, wow, look at that, it's $2.50. That's brutal. Sorry, I should stop before that. Thank you.